here's what's funny. People who are Catholics, they think anybody, like for example, if you go to other countries where Catholicism is really prevalent, they think anybody who's a Christian who's not part of the Catholic Church is in a cult. Like if you go to Germany, oh, you're Baptist, that's a cult. That's a cult. Everything's a cult. You know, oh, you're Christian, you're cult. You know, it's just because you're not part of the main church. All these sects, all these cults, all these. But here's the thing. Catholicism is actually the biggest cult in the world. Because if you look at what a cult is, it's when you're following and worshiping a man. You know, when we use the word cult, for example, you'll often hear the term cult of personality. Who's ever heard that term? Personality cult. And usually you'll hear that term associated with people like Joseph Stalin or Mao Zedong. You know, the cult of personality is where they're obsessed with and worshiping a man and following a man. And when we think of what we would consider religious cults, we think of Mormonism. Why? Because they're following man, Joseph Smith, and they elevate him to a godlike status. Or Ellen G. White is lifted up by the Seventh-day Adventists as being a prophet of God, when in reality she was a false prophet. So therefore it's a cult because they're rejecting the teachings of the Bible in order to follow man. You know, those, well, one man in that case. For example, you know, David Koresh, you know, down with the Branch Davidians at Waco. Basically, that was considered a cult because David Koresh is saying, you know, I'm another coming of Jesus Christ, or whatever he claimed to be. You know, we think of people following Charles Manson as being in a cult because they were brainwashed and worshiping Charles Manson, and they're willing to do whatever he tells them to do and so forth. But if you think about it, Roman Catholicism worships the Pope. So there, I mean, that makes it a cult because he can actually override the Bible. You know, when Joseph Smith overrides the Bible, we call it a cult. You know, when Ellen G. White overrides the Bible, we call it a cult. When Charles Manson or David Koresh overrides the Bible, we call it a cult. You know, when people are worshiping Stalin, and when people are worshiping Mao Zedong, and when people are worshiping Kim Jong-il, we call it a cult, even though it's not even religious. We call it a cult of personality. People have even talked about, you know, a cult of personality around Obama. You know, when some people get obsessed with Obama or any politician, they'll say, hey, that's a personality cult. That's about some churches where the pastor is overly elevated, and they'll say, hey, that's a personality cult, because they're just really worshiping that guy. When it's not any, there's nothing wrong with being excited about the truths that are being preached, but they'll get excited about other aspects of the pastor, like, you know, we need to wear our hair like him, we want to dress like him, you know, we want to eat all the foods that he eats, and stuff. You know, where it's like, whoa, that's taking it a little too far, where you just want to just emulate the physical persona and start just being exactly like that guy. Okay, that's where it's like a personality cult. But if you think about it with the Pope, he speaks ex cathedra, he overrides the Bible for the Catholics. And not only that, I always say this, when the Catholics say, hey, we don't worship the Pope, but I always say this, but when the Pope shows up, they get down on their knees and bow down to him. That's, the Bible defines that as worship. And whenever anybody gets down and bows down unto Peter and James and John, they lift them up. They tell them, stand up, I'm also a man as thou art. When they try to bow down to Paul and Barnabas, they don't let them bow down to them, because that's an act of worship. And today, people want to bow down to the Pope, get an audience with the Pope, just touch the hem of the Pope's garment, and never wash that hand again. Why? Because it's a cult. And not only that, if I told you there's a Christian cult out there, so-called Christian cult, where there's a guy that speaks in the place of God and he can override what the Bible says, and that guy wants you to eat human flesh and drink blood to be saved, you'd say that's a wicked, bizarre religion. Well, it's Catholicism.
You see, if you look at the back of this invitation right here, okay, and by the way, can I tell you something about this invitation? It has never changed. The only way that it has changed is to update a phone number, to update an address, and to add one point to what we believe. I'm going to just be very forthcoming with you and tell you everything that has changed since this church started. The address and the phone number have changed. Under what we believe, I added a section that says we believe only in the local church and reject the teaching of a universal church. Of sodomy and filth to the world. And you know what? And then people are like, "Oh, we need to pray for him that he finds Jesus." I'm going to pray that he dies and goes to hell. Are you serious? Now, tonight I want to preach this sermon. You know, you've probably never heard a sermon like this before. Actually, you probably have if you've been going to church here for a while. But you know what? Here's my sermon. Why I hate Barack Obama. That's my sermon tonight. Because, you know, Barack Obama is coming to town tomorrow morning. Barack Obama is coming to town. And he's going to be here tomorrow. Who knew that he was coming to town? I didn't know. I just found out recently. You know, with his health care and everything like this. And I'm going to tell you something. I hate Barack Obama. You say, well, you just mean you don't like what he stands for. No, I hate the person. Amen. Oh, hey, you mean you just don't like his calling. No, I hate him. Now, I'm going to prove this from the Bible tonight, why I should hate Barack Obama. Why God wants me to hate Barack Obama. Why God hates Barack Obama. If you claim to believe the Bible and don't believe what I'm saying, then you're a hypocrite. If you claim to believe the Bible and don't believe what I'm saying, then you're a hypocrite.